But this is
Yeah.
okay. So this is Reiner, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's
Directing
basically
Sorkin.
the funny thing is I don't know, like again, it's like it's going to be almost impossible to talk about what's going on, the context of these two movies. But so this comes out in '95. Clinton is in year two of his presidency.
Right.
He's not gotten to Monica yet. Um, and I mean, this movie is 30 years old, but it might, as far as I'm concerned, it might as well have been made in the 30s
Right.
because the
Isn't that
resemblance to
true of
anything,
all rom-coms?
the resemblance to anything happening in the White House for the last, I don't know, 25 years, like, is non-existent.
Right.
Like really since Bush 2, right?
Yeah.
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 You mean anything, any semblance of normalcy, you mean?
Paints a picture of a normalcy presidency where people are concerned about stuff that matters, but you can see creeping in, thanks to Dreyfus, things that don't matter, which is now all anybody talks about. It doesn't matter.
You could also say this is
culture
a
war
lot
bullshit.
like if Obama was single. He was the last.
Right. I mean, well, that it's the tan suit, right? I mean,
he's a big, tall, affable, normal guy. He's
Right.
and he's just there's nothing.
Seems decent.
He's a decent fellow,
Decent.
and he was no hard edges on him. He wasn't out for blood or anything like that. Nothing weird about him, and so
decent and smart.
Yeah, mind you, this is like both this and Air Force One. This is this guy's the perfect liberal president. He's the ultimate Democrat president.
I mean, this is obviously just.
Is he though?
It's a. He's a.
But
This is
in
a.
that Air Force One,
Well, sort of like a
sure
poster version.
yeah.
I'm not sure
that
about
Air Force One's a perfect Republican president.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, maybe that's arguably true.
But then, okay, so when did West Wing start?
Like right after this, I think.
This was a rehearsal for West Wing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
This is-
yeah.
you could
I
just-
mean,
you could
Martin
feel it.
Sheen
Hello?
took the role. Yeah.
Oh,
In fact, it was a little distracting to see him like, yes, Mr. President. Yes, I was like, that guy's the
yeah,
president.
and it feels like Sorkin hadn't really completely, like, if you watch a movie now, like either I don't know, the Steve Jobs one or Social Network or some of the other ones, like Sorkin's almost like bordering on caricature. That it's so dense. This is like half the amount of words that he seems to be writing these days.
So,
it's sort of winding up.
Yes.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because no matter how you feel about it personally, I like this better. I like when he's not all in to like too much babble.
Everybody gets a really big speech.
Like this seems like you said, people still talk like this. Maybe
Yeah.
Sorkin can get into territory where you're like, people don't talk like that. You're just being really smart and saying cool lines,
Right.
But
I mean, I don't know that. I mean, Michael Douglas is extremely charming in this.
Yeah, of course.
Like everybody in it gets a little moment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
When
was
Rementing this down? That was 87.
Oh no. The first one was 84.
Yeah,
84.
Yeah,
84,
wow.
85, yeah.
But
yeah, he's charming in that. He's really charming in this. Like it's like feels like Gordon Gekko is pretty far away from this character. I mean, like everybody. But there's this weird sheen on the whole thing, and some of it's like the sort of horrible lighting that Reiner's using in some of these interior. Like the whole thing looks like a soundstage, and it's like they're not even trying to make it look real, except that like occasionally when they're in the Rose Garden, it feels like, did they shoot the White House? Or no, I'm sure this must be a soundstage.
But it's the mid 90s. That was
right. It's got this sort of mid 90s look to it, where the lighting's just a little too flat and clean.
Sure.
There's but I mean, yeah, like it's just jam packed with people who are like bringing their A game if they only get one scene. I mean, Dreyfus is really good in this, playing a sort of hateful, the sort of hateful asshole we've all come to get used to. And I think in any other situation, I do remember really, really liking this the first time I saw it, but like probably the rest of you, watching it now, a couple of days after the election, it's impossible not to look at this as some sort of weird, quaint historical fantasy movie.
It is a fantasy. And West Wing was a fantasy too. It was a liberal fantasy of what the president is and what the presidency is. And I mean, it was very satisfying to watch for that reason. It was like, look at
But
these.
at least both projects have respect for that title.
Oh, I
And,
don't doubt. I just, but
you know,
I might as well
like-
be watching Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Yeah, which is also a great film.
Which is nothing more dumbed down than this film. You know, the one of the things they show in this is the White House is full of people who are very much on top of their game. They're smart, they're educated, they know everything what they're doing. They talk fast, but they have a lot to say because they know how everything works.
Yes.
And there's also a few bad.
You feel like expertise is right there. There's no dummies.
Capra-esque.
It is Capra-esque, and they even obviously have a nod to Frank Capra in the movie.
Big time.
Yeah, which I thought was clever. And by the way, did anybody notice the first AD is Frank Capra the third?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they
Oh, I
built
didn't.
all
That's
these-
The
amazing.
grandson.
they
Yeah,
built all
I
these
didn't.
sets
I had no
for
idea.
them and
This-
used
this-
West Wing, right?
This movie also does something that a lot of like romantic comedies don't do, which is it has just enough of the president's job and like realism to it,
Right.
where it's like they're talking about real shit. They're handling like there's some moments in it where he has to make a couple decisions that aren't like where he's like we're how many janitors are working right now. There's this scene where it's like
that was absolutely the
really
West Wing.
good.
That felt just like the West Wing.
I never watched that show.
I never watched it either, but
If you like this movie,
Yeah, I mean, I probably could not get through the West Wing any more than like. There's no way I'm watching the fucking West Wing now.
well,
I'll say one difference I noticed comparing it to the West Wing, and I think we can lay this on Rob Reiner, is that, and partly Jared's point that this script is not quite as jam-packed with super clever speeches delivered at rocket speeds.
Yeah.
This is a little clumsier, a little more flat-footed in places, and than a typical episode of The West Wing, and certainly not as good as some of the best episodes of The West Wing. I watched almost the entire series, and yeah, this to me was like watching sort of the concept car version of The West Wing, and it was like, oh, there's a good moment. Ooh, that wasn't so good. Oh, that line wasn't so good. Oh, this was good. The other thing that kind of takes the shine off of it for me is the score is just, well, to use another Reinerism, it turned up to 11. I mean, good God.
It's a 90 score.
When he goes in and makes his speech in the press room, the music that comes right after that is, it crushes you.
Well, funnily enough, that was the only Oscar this movie garnered nomination was for the score for some reason. I don't know why.
It's in your face.
Particularly, I like the score of the next movie. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Well, mind you, let's go back to the question that John brought up.
It's Goldsmith,
it's
right?
It's like the West Wing in that, in terms of like it's a drama about the nuts and bolts of how the White House works, but it's also a
rom-com.
I can put that list out right now of all the meet cute,
Scott, the grand gesture.
It follows it perfectly. There's all
grand gesture, yeah,
absolutely. The grand gesture is the moment in the press room when he makes the speech defending her.
The misunderstanding and the anger and the walkout and the whole, it's all there. So it's a combination of the two. So if it seems clunky in some places, that's because it's rom-comming.
Right.
But the rom-com seems kind of like forced. It's because it's drama-ing.
And that speech at the end still gets me though every time. See, if you're obviously you guys aren't like me, but for some reason I was pretty formative at a formative age when this movie came out, and I have this on DVD. I mean, I've watched this many times over the years. It's been a while since I've seen it now, but watching it again, and even in the wake of a horrible election, that speech still gets me at the end. I mean, because there's so much integrity in that speech. There's so much.
It's great.
A while ago, we watched Apollo. Was it 11, the documentary one?
Yeah.
Oh God!
I think there was a couple of you that got pretty emotional talking about it, saying like, "This is a
I was
representation
crying during that movie."
Well, this is a representation of when America was better, or if not great, better.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would make the same argument about something like this, where even with all of the borderline cliches and some of the stuff that comes with the rom-com, like it is a portrayal of this job where the person occupying it is fundamentally decent.
Yeah.
And up to the job.
And up to the job, right?
He's up for the job. He's got integrity. he
And
like
this is comparing this to Reagan. This is like we're looking at a place where White House
Yeah, he is
everybody's
more of a
everybody's
Reagan.
young and on the ball, and they care about stuff. And the last year of Reagan was him basically just shuffling from room to room with a
right.
rule in the corner of his mouth. And so or Bush too, Bush one, same
Well,
thing.
but think about this. This is right in the wake of Clinton's first year or two.
Right.
I'm assuming
which was like very successful for the most
Yeah.
part.
Well,
Right.
Yeah.
We had the Senate. We had both houses, and he was kicking ass. And
but there was a level of
His
vigor.
approval rating was very high.
There was a
Lewinsky
level of
hadn't happened
vigor
yet.
that Clinton had in his early years that was notably absent, certainly from Reagan and even from Bush one. Like
Yeah.
here's a guy who's like young, energetic, seems to know what the fuck he's doing, like really into policy. Him and Gore were like policy wonks. They were like, that was what they got famous for really early. And that's very much, Michael Douglas, for me at least, seems like, oh, I get it. Like Sorkin sat down and goes, I'm going to write a story about Clinton, except Hillary's not around and he's got to get a new girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
and it all kind of works.
And like you said, Chris, everybody is bringing their A game in this. I mean, we hadn't seen Michael J. Fox this good since, I mean, I don't know when, actually.
He's really
probably
good.
the fucking 80s.
Yeah, he's really good at this.
Like, and
what was Spin City? It reminded
Spin
me.
City was after this, or yeah, good question.
it might have. Yeah, that
He was
is
good
a
in
good
that,
question.
too. He was good in that.
Yeah, he's good in that. But I mean, like,
right?
it was sort of like, I don't know. For me, it was sort of like a mini resurrection of him in this picture.
So his health is starting to go in this film.
Yeah.
Although you can't really. I mean,
he's still on
now.
the
Like, I don't think I
medicine or
noticed
whatever.
that.
No, and he's still so on it with his delivery, with his, and his character is so
And
great.
He's tiny.
He's so
a
tiny.
little man.
He is a tiny guy. But everybody's on fire. I mean, not the least, Annette Bening is just
very good in this.
Magnificent.
It might be one of her best.
I think
it's really good in.
It's one of my favorites of hers here.
American,
The Grifters.
American Beauty.
American Beauty is very good.
Grifters.
Grifters is very good. Grifters is underrated.
San Francisco State alumni.
I thought that was Angelica Houston.
Yeah, there was a guy.
She's Cusack's girlfriend.
She's the girlfriend.
Okay.
I did Uncle Vanya. Was it earlier this year? Yeah, I did Uncle Vanya like in March, and the guy that played Vanya and I played Mikhail. He was a peer of her. They studied at the same.
She's ex-ACT.
Yeah, they studied at the same. They were in the same class.
Oh, cool.
Annette, and they were friends.
So I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, like I enjoyed watching this movie, but I really struggled with enjoying it now versus being, enjoying this and say in like 2000.
Right. Well, Chris,
like,
for me, it was
last year I could have really enjoyed this movie without.
You got to be able to separate. It's just a movie.
It worked for me. I forgot all about.
So did I, Jim. I didn't think about DT for a whole 2 hours. So mission accomplished.
I know what I guess it worked. If it really took you away from reality, that means it worked. For me, it was of course the opposite. It just crushed me. So it's like, don't watch it. Because it's every second is everything you're missing. You never. So it's like it sucked. Don't listen to me. It's Yadavan talking, but nonetheless.
Come on. The American Empire has fallen.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
that's fun.
I don't know. Out of context, I mean, it's a thumbs up for me.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I was trying to make a lighthearted week of picks, but it's the events of.
I'd be up. I guess be up because it's half rom com, half. We like to hear anyway. So it's like it's pretty good. It's like I like.
This is like I just think it's a charming film.
It's charming. It has.
And there are some very clever jokes in it, by the way, too. I mean,
there are some
you can write a funny joke.